Imagine running an engine designed to produce nearly 900 horsepower in a place so humid and so hot that the air itself becomes your enemy. That's Singapore. Meanwhile, 5,000 kilometers away at Spa, engineers face the opposite torture. Add too much cooling for those tropical streets, and the aerodynamic drag will cost you a second per lap on the straights. So how do teams solve this? They don't. They choose which disaster to accept, and that choice is made weeks before a single lap is turned. This is where championships are won and lost in the margins, not on track, but in spreadsheets weeks before the Grand Prix arrives. A cooling system that keeps your engine alive at 35 degrees Celsius in Singapore might add enough drag at Spa to lose you pole position and the race. Meanwhile, strip away that cooling to chase speed in Belgium, and your power unit will grenade itself under the pressure of tropical humidity. Every tenth of a second gained through aerodynamic efficiency becomes worthless if your turbocharger melts or your hydraulic fluid boils. The team that masters this brutal calculation, balancing thermal survival against lap time cost, doesn't just survive both extremes, they dominate them. Imagine you're an engineer staring at 2 calendar dates separated by just 3 weeks, and each one demands the opposite solution to keep your engine alive. At Singapore, your car is essentially running through a sauna. Ambient temperature pushing 35 degrees, humidity at 90%, and the track surface itself radiates heat like a griddle because there's no breeze, no elevation change, nothing to help the air move. Your engine's turbocharged cylinder head is trying to burn fuel at over 800 degrees Celsius, and that heat has nowhere to escape because the stagnant tropical air outside is nearly as hot as the cooling system trying to dump into it. You need massive radiators. Think of them as inverted sails, huge surface areas designed to bleed heat away. But every radiator opening you add punches a hole in your aerodynamics, creating drag that costs you tenths of a second per lap in a tight 90-minute race. Now jump 3 weeks forward to Spa, where average temperatures are 20 degrees cooler and cars are hitting 300 kilometers per hour through Eau Rouge, where the slipstream is violent and constant. At high speed, airflow becomes a weapon. That same breeze that won't help you in Singapore becomes a violent river pushing through your radiator ducts, potentially cooling your engine too much, making the fluid so cold that it loses efficiency and your pistons can't reach optimal operating temperature. So you shrink those cooling inlets, tighten them up, reduce the drag penalty, and suddenly you've cut off your own escape route for excess heat. The brutal physics here is this: big coolers equal survival in the heat, but pure drag everywhere else. Small coolers equal speed at high-speed tracks, but thermal meltdown in the sauna. There is no single solution that wins at both places, only the best compromise, and that compromise is locked in weeks earlier when the first component orders are signed. In 2016, Ferrari brought a cooling setup to Singapore that was optimized for European circuits, and within 20 laps their cars were shedding performance as the hybrid systems began to throttle back power to protect the power unit. Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel couldn't maintain race pace. The Scuderia finished 4th and 6th, while Mercedes, who'd built their entire package around Marina Bay's unpredictable thermal load, took a 1-2, a decision made not on Saturday but 3 weeks earlier during design freeze. Now flip to Spa 2016, and suddenly, cooling philosophy became a weapon in a completely different way. Mercedes arrived with radiator configurations so aggressive they were dumping coolant through their system faster than optimal, literally overcooling the power unit to stay safe in the high-speed Ardennes corners. Williams and some midfield teams, running tighter inlets to save drag, found their engines climbing into the red zones through Pouhon and Blanchimont. They were quick in the straights, but one safety car restart away from a limp home situation. Lewis Hamilton won that race partly on engine management. Mercedes engineers had the thermal margin to push, while rivals were already managing temperatures before the final 20 laps had even started. These weren't accidents or equipment failures. They were the direct result of fundamental choices made months before the cars ever turned a wheel in anger. That's the hidden war in Formula One. Not what you see on Sunday, but what was decided in the drawing office when someone had to choose between survival and speed. Now, here's the tension. Imagine you're a mid-grid team at Spa with just 72 hours to go, and your simulations show you're 5 degrees over the safety threshold through the high-speed section. You have 3 choices: bolt on bigger radiators and lose 1/10 of a second down the Mulsanne, reprogram the engine map to run hotter and risk catastrophic failure, or accept you'll be managing temps instead of chasing podiums. Most teams pick door number 3, and that's the race already lost, weeks before the lights go out. So remember this. Cooling isn't just about staying below a number on a dashboard. It's about how much speed you can afford to leave on the table. Singapore teaches you survival. Spa teaches you the cost of aggression, and every other circuit sits somewhere in between, waiting to punish the teams that guessed wrong. The driver we remember is the one who managed it perfectly. But the engineers who made that possible, they're the ones who really won the race. Drop a comment below. Which circuit's thermal challenge fascinates you most? Or which hidden war of F1 should we investigate next? And if you're hungry for the real stories behind what happens in the paddock, hit subscribe, because next week we're going even